different emails that I've sent that I'm really excited to talk to our special guest today. Mr. Campbell, I have told them that you are probably the most inspirational person I know. But I also have to tell them and be honest that we haven't actually talked in a very long time. That doesn't mean that I haven't been following you or your journey or feel like I know you. But it's been since college, I think, since we've talked last. I'm not going to steal your thunder, so I'm going to let you do the introduction, but I know you asked for me to play the video first, right?
Yeah, that'll probably be helpful just so people kind of understand the changes and I guess why you're saying the nice things that you're saying.
Fair.
Check
All right,
one.
give me a second. I've got the video loaded. I just need to switch it over to that.
So just a little bit about this video. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, because I can move and I'm mobile now, uh, I broke my neck in 2014. I was paralyzed as a quadriplegic. So the things that Catrice is saying and sharing about being inspirational, trying to recover from this type of situation and trying to rebuild life after being paralyzed um, from this point in the video to now is kind of why she's saying those things and I guess giving me those kind words. And so to give a little background, like Catrice was saying, we haven't spoken face to face in a while. We used to be teammates running track at CSU. So going through this type of change is devastating to, say the least. Not by any extreme exaggeration. This was a life-changing experience. I went from running D1 track. I was married. I had a 1 and 3-year-old. I was finishing up my master's in software engineering, and like many people, trying to climb up at my company, improve my job, just kind of some of the regular things that I think a lot of us in life try to pursue. And in one swift moment, I was not able to perform my job anymore. I was not able to enter my home. My belongings became somewhat meaningless. I wasn't able to drive a motorcycle. I couldn't ride clothes. I couldn't put on myself food and I couldn't feed myself. It was literally fully dependent on others for my care on a regular daily basis. And so being put in this situation really challenged me to begin thinking about life somewhat in general, but also what could I do? What changes could I make? How do you move forward from a situation like this? Um, Unfortunately, leading into this, I had also lost my sister to depression. She had took her life 5 months before I was paralyzed, which was very challenging, very hard, and oddly, it provided somewhat of an opportunity for me to prepare for my own challenges, just putting myself in someone else's shoes, thinking about what would I do when I faced hardship? What was she thinking when she was dealing with this stuff? And how could I handle and manage things for myself if if I was ever put in something like that? And I definitely got tested. I wish it wasn't that type of situation, but I got put fully to the test in following through with the things that I said and trying to do the things that I believed I should have done if I was ever faced with depression, thoughts of hardship, losing what was important to me. And thankfully, I was able to follow through on a lot of that. A lot of people give me credit for the changes I was able to make physically. It does come with a lot of working out, a lot of things that I had been through in track, keeping up with the diet, keeping up with a routine, just taking care of general health. But it's a lot more about the attitude, the habits, and what you do when you're put in this are situations that actually makes the difference. A lot of that came with having a supportive community that wasn't just people always being kind to me. I did a lot to make sure I maintained healthy relationships, that I cared about those around me, that I stayed in touch somehow. I mean, even this is an example of that. While I might not see Catrice face to face all the time, or we haven't spoken in years, I'm still proud of the success she's had. I keep up with the changes that she's going through in her life, and she's able to keep up with mine, and those relationships pay off. They get you through, and even if it's just a happy birthday, happy holidays, or anything else, it gets you through those tough times. So definitely team, community, um, being good to other people, and people supporting you through these situations. uh, with having a strong community and people that were there for me, having a good attitude by far was one of the most important things. Having my family just lose my sister months before, there was an obligation to feel, I guess, strong for my mom and for others. But I also knew that if I continued, I guess, just sitting there and feeling bad for myself and feeling down, it was going to impact those around me far worse than it was already. I mean, it was something that happened to me, but it heavily affects those around me. Our attitudes, whether we like to believe it or not, when we're having a down day, it impacts our team members, it impacts our coworkers, it impacts our family members. And it's really hard to, I guess, detach when we're having those tough times from what we project to those around us. So it's always good to keep lines of communication, because if I come home and I'm in a bad mood, no one else knows the day that I went through or what thoughts I'm having, but I might take it out on those closest to me. And if they don't understand why, that can cause a lot of hardship on our family members and those people around us. Um, I guess with some of that in place, then I kind of shifted things towards focusing on myself. Like, what can I do? I think a lot of us sometimes feel helpless or hopeless, whether it's finances, whether it's schoolwork. I mean, it could be any number of things, relationships, children, parents. And I haven't been through the worst of what people go through, but I feel like I've had my share. And um, I guess goal setting, setting good habits, setting some type of foundation every day where I knew things were going to be okay. For me, that was working out. I had a physical injury. I have a physical past, so that's where I kind of find my normal day to day. If I can get up, get a good meal in, do some type of exercise, I know it's just another normal day. Even if I'm, and it sounds kind of crazy, even if I'm waking up paralyzed, I was still trying to move each day. I still had a routine each day. I was still trying to do the things that I could do, even though it felt completely hopeless and it seemed somewhat meaningless trying to move when you can't move. I knew those were the things that I needed to do, and every single day I had a routine in place of trying to wiggle my toes, roll my ankles, flex my leg, trying to sit up, trying to move when people were putting my clothes on, because it was something that I believed in and I knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't want to just lay there and give up. It just wasn't the right answer. Um, But over time, things started coming back. I started getting a finger twitch. I started getting a toe twitch, and there was reason to celebrate. I was excited, and people were excited for me. But if you have ever set a goal, there's these small steps and small victories, but you still have to keep going. Sometimes we want like quick satisfaction or quick gratification, and then if we don't get it, we quit, or we reach the first milestone and we quit. I knew getting some type of movement was a good thing, but wiggling a toe was not going to get me out of the door in the morning. My finger twitching was not going to get me feeding myself or get me further. So I had to keep going and keep trying and keep working. And A finger movement became arm movement. Arm movement became being able to sit up and feed myself. Feeding myself took a load off of what my family was having to do day to day. And eventually I was able to start using a forearm walker and walking to the kitchen each day and just committing myself to little things. Today I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to use the walker just to make it to the bathroom and brush my teeth. The rest of the day I was in a power wheelchair, not able to do a whole lot. But if I could just do one thing for myself each day, that was my goal setting. And that's what I was trying to do and build on. After 1 week of doing that, I was feeling better. I was feeling more comfortable. I would add another thing. Okay, maybe today I'm going to try to get around the cul-de-sac. And it sounds small, but these things were very significant for me. They were very challenging. Um, they were honestly goals that I felt were out of reach at the time. And every single time that I set one of those goals and I was able to reach one of them, it became normal after a while. And then I was able to build onto it and work towards the next thing. So walking through the cul-de-sac began the next thing. I was able to get up and down the street, then around the neighborhood. And now I'm at a point where I use forearm crutches when I'm out and about in public throughout the day. It's more of for safety concerns, but I can get around my house without crutches. Um, I use a wheelchair for a power attachment if I'm out with my kids at soccer games. It's more about choosing the right thing and the right device to enjoy certain circumstances. I can be hard-headed and push through certain things. Like I could use my crutches at a soccer game, but I don't want to feel like I'm hiking to go enjoy a kid's soccer game. So I'm just quicker and faster, and it's easier for me and my family. So now I have this luxury to almost pick which things I'm trying to enjoy and what chances and opportunities I need to push myself. But it's still always working towards something. The same habits that were in place that took me to get here, I still have to maintain on a regular basis. And sometimes that can be daunting for a lot of people, knowing that it doesn't necessarily just get easy, that you have to keep working. But in through working, you're able to handle changes, you're able to handle challenges when they come up, because for a lot of us, they do come up, and it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It's not through mistakes we've made. Sometimes things are just going to hit us, and sometimes it feels like one thing happens after another and we just can't get out of it. But if we keep doing the right things that we're doing, eventually things pass, whether it's good or hard. These things will resolve at some point in time, and it's just weathering the ups and downs. I like to say that I try to make progress when things are going well, and I simply try to maintain where I'm at when things get rough. And that's how I've been able to thankfully work to where I am now. And this hasn't just been with the physical aspects, with work as well. I did have to give up my job. I slowly tried to work back to a point where I've worked on my typing skills. You would think sitting at a desk would be a good thing for someone that's paralyzed, but sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day is absolutely the worst thing for trying to recover mobility. A desk job was not good for me, and it was causing more health problems. And I still don't have great finger function and dexterity. So I went from typing 160 words per minute. Now I can type to get emails out and function, but it's much more like 30 words per minute. So there's a lot of things that I face now that are still challenges. But we look at the options that we have, we look at the tools that we have available, and we try to make the best of it. Now with technology, I can use assistive technology to help me type out some stuff. It's not great, but it gets the job done. I do a lot more on my phone than the computer, because swiping and using phone text is better than a computer for me. There's ways of navigating challenges. It might not be the best, it might not be perfect, but most things are doable. There's usually a way to navigate our circumstances to find, I guess, something that's going to move us forward. And like I said, it's not always going to be the best. It might not always be the thing that we want, but it's the way that we need to do it to move forward. Um, some of the things that have also helped me on that road are asking for help. I'm pretty stubborn. I like doing things myself. Asking for help was literally probably one of the hardest things that I had to learn how to do. Whether it was I remember one time sitting in the hospital and feeling like a burden and not wanting to ask anyone for anything, just trying to minimize my impact on others. And so I didn't feel guilty. A nurse came in and asked if I wanted the TV on. She turned it on and left, and I didn't think anything of it. And I believe it was Telemundo was on the TV, and I don't speak Spanish, so I was sitting there just being stubborn,
Oh,
watching Telemundo all morning because I wouldn't even ask for the channel to be changed on the TV. Being hard headed, not asking family members for water if I needed water, just trying to like stick it out. And finally, I started saying, "Hey, like when I need help, there's nothing wrong with asking for help." Uh, Sometimes it's our own internal feelings that are causing the problem. No one thought of me as a burden for asking for water. No one thought of me as a burden for asking minimal things. They completely understood. And if anything, I was robbing some people who were very caring and loving who just wanted to help themselves. But I didn't give them the opportunity to because I just kept keeping to myself and keeping quiet when I actually needed help. And this isn't just with my injury. I did this at work stubbornly enough before my injury too. And I learned like when you actually do need help, it's better to ask for help, not make mistakes, be able to get the job done instead of just trying to take on the load of everything that we want to do ourselves. And I'm sure some of us might overcommit too, where we just want to be helpful. So it's yes, I can do it, I got it, and sometimes we don't have it all. Sometimes we can't get to everything and we do need to ask for help. And so I'd, encourage anyone when you do need it, don't be afraid to ask. Those of us that never ask for help and are kind of stubborn like that, you'd be surprised how many people kick in and show up for you just because they know you're the type of person to not ask for help. So when you need it, go for it. Um, and on the opposite side of it, it's always about perspective. I sometimes contradict myself a lot because I try to think of things from both ends. And just like there's people that don't ask for help, there's people that are not willing to do anything for themselves. And on that end, you have to be willing to push yourself and challenge yourself and pick up things. Like one thing that I always try to do, and especially with being paralyzed, it's an extreme thing. I could lay there and ask people for help all the time. I've seen people that are highly dependent and their families almost enable them where they could regain something. They could make things easier on their family members. They could probably regain some function, but because they just always like take help and because they always ask for help before trying themselves, they never realize that they can actually move some, that they can actually transfer themselves or they might be able to do something. And so that's one rule that I kind of have for myself as I open myself up to failure. If I'm still not able to, then I will go to someone for help. But I always make sure that I'm at least trying. If I can, I will. If I need to learn from the experience, I do. But if I need help, I ask for it. It's a really tough balance navigating these things, but it's at least in my experience the only way that it can be done. If not, you either sit stuck in a place where you're not asking for help or you're stuck in a place where you're letting everyone do something for you. Like there's a lot of things that we're capable of doing, but a lot of it's just having the confidence to go out and try or fight for it. um, and sometimes people love a defiant story. I did have doctors tell me what was possible and not possible. And I try not to focus on that too much because a lot of people are just limited to their own experiences and their own beliefs. Uh, Now, when I go to the hospital, I listen to their opinions, I listen to their feedback, but a lot of doctors, someone being paralyzed, and especially now where I'm at, someone being paralyzed and walking into the doctor's office is they might have read about it in a book while they were in school. They might have studied a chapter on spinal cord injuries, and their experience is actually very limited to the things that I'm going through. So, there's nothing wrong with listening to people and seeking some advice and guidance, but by no means is the opinions of others the defining factor for what we're capable of. So that's why I always try to figure out things for myself and at least give myself the opportunity to see if they're right or wrong, because sometimes like someone will tell you you can't do it and you're like, oh well, I went to the office today and someone told me it was a bad idea, and then we never take the chance. It's just having the confidence to pursue something that we believe in and actually love that makes a huge difference. um and I mean, I could go on and on about a thousand different stories and situations of things that I've gone through or I've put myself through to, not just talk about this, but to actually live it and experience it. But I also, want to make sure it's valuable for you also. If there's like questions or feelings or thoughts that you all have that I can help and provide some feedback on, please feel free to throw them my way. Patrice, is there anything that you can think of or what stood out to you over the years?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole story, honestly, I'd like to kind of just jump back to the beginning because um, I know that um, you talked a lot about, having that strong mindset, having that work ethic, setting those goals, taking small steps. Um, I've always been curious, like whether or not like work ethic is something that you're just born with or something that you just have. And the reason I'm asking you this, I want your opinion, but the reason I'm asking is because I've known you for a long time, and when we spent the most time together, I remember you specifically standing out because your work ethic is far and above most people that you would interact with. And being a Division I athlete, which you kind of just skirted over, that comes with its own hardships, that comes with its own challenges. But work ethic, where does that come from?
I I can't say that I was born with it. It's a combination of experiences. When I was younger, I had lost my father, and I was about 12 years older than my sister, 14 years older than my younger brother. So I was uh, more of a authority figure for them. And a lot of my childhood was picking them up from school, cooking and cleaning, doing things for my mom before she got home. So at a pretty early age, I was learning routine, how to help others, and how to be disciplined. I was able to do that at home, but in high school, I was a B, C student. I wasn't always the best. I kind of did the bare minimum just to get by. And I had an advisor at high school that told me I would not be able to compete at D1 college. He said he just didn't believe that there was any way for me to actually make it to a D1 school, regardless of me doing sports or not. I didn't have the worst grades, but that always kind of bothered me because it was an advisor and someone who was supposed to help me find a way to make this possible, not just to shut down my hopes and dreams. While I might not have been the best student, I wasn't the worst student. And it was experiences like that that kind of began teaching me, like, this person has an opinion, but their opinion isn't the final say so. So I listened to what he had to say, and then I kept working towards what I thought was possible. And that did lead me to college. And even making to college and being able to run track at CSU, I also was not at CSU for a very long time because of mistakes being made. Being at home and helping raise my brother and sister, I was always very responsible. So when I got to college and I didn't have supervision and I didn't have someone guiding me to go to school and what to do, I again was not getting good grades while I was at CSU. Um, by my sophomore year, I ended up ineligible to compete in track, which was devastating to me because I was on scholarship and I felt if I was going to school for track and they were paying me to run track, that was my job and that was my priority. And I didn't realize everything else that I needed to do for that one thing to work. I didn't realize I needed to stay on top of nutrition and school and education and the things that actually make a complete student athlete and not me just being an athlete. Because of that, I did end up having to transfer schools to a junior college for a period of time. And that transfer, it hit me hard. I was very upset at myself. So I went to a junior college. I probably took 2 semesters worth of credits. So I think I had 22, 23 credits my first semester at school. ended up with a 4.0. I busted my tail just so I could transfer back to what I felt like I messed up and lost. And so, I mean, these were lessons that I was learning the hard way. It was not something that I was gifted with or something that I had done my whole life. And the only reason why I didn't end up going back to CSU is I had a 4.0 and they didn't transfer my GPA back. So I ended up having to go to a different school. But it's mistakes throughout the years that have finally pushed me to perform better, to think better, to be more disciplined, to have these habits. I've had them in little amounts, but sadly I've had to learn the hard way with a lot of different things, and I wish I didn't. I didn't always have someone telling me what I needed to do in school or how to perform the best or what to do when I made mistakes. So I've made a couple and I've made a couple repeatedly. I wish someone was there to share their experiences with me so I could get it through my head sometimes like, okay, I know these things are going to happen, but how do I improve? How do I make it through it instead of making the same mistake twice, instead of making um impulsive decisions. And like thankfully by my senior year in college, I finally had it all pieced together, and it wasn't at CSU, but it was another school where I ended up as student athlete of the month. I had won D1A nationals. I had set the school record at Northern Colorado that I held for 10 years. Um, and it took me a lot to get to that point, but it's through learning these lessons through mistakes, and it's, through experiences that, again, if I didn't learn from it, I would still be stuck. And if I wasn't open to trying again and failing and improving, I definitely wouldn't have made it there. And these are just things that, were for athletics and for a college education, but they still are things that echo in my life now and getting me through a different type of hardship. And, it sucks to say, but sometimes I'm really thankful for the things that have went wrong, because otherwise I wouldn't have learned these habits and I wouldn't have the work ethic that I have now.
I love that, in that whole description, you are completely in the driver's seat. That's the person that I know. Like you've just always been in the driver's seat as far as your life is concerned. And so even though you've gone through just something that's unspeakable, as you've slowly begun to make these changes over time, I'm like, if anyone was going to make it through these changes, like it was Sherown. Like he was gonna make it through just because I feel like you do have that ownership. You are in a room full of teachers though. And I know you also talked a little bit about having a support system. So kind of if you can step outside of your driver's seat for just a few minutes, and if you were going to ask for help, or how could a teacher or an instructor maybe have given you better guidance in maybe those first crucial years of your college education?
Um, that's a tough one because, like I said, a lot of people don't want to ask for help. And I'm gonna kind of divide it into two different things just because some of the lessons that I've learned, like I said, through losing my sister. And she was at Miami University. She was on academic scholarship. And so she was one of the students that would probably be sitting in your front row with a smile on their face and always getting good grades. Um, One of the challenges and frustrations that I know she was having that led up to us losing her was, I think she was getting B's in some classes. That's by no means something that a lot of kids would stress about, but for her, being on academic scholarship and being at risk of losing that was a huge stress factor for her. So, I mean, it might be taking time to identify some of those things of, even the students that you think are your best performers, if they're on academic scholarship and, they're at risk of losing that, seeing, I guess, where people are starting to get in trouble. For some students, being in trouble academically isn't failing. They might be at risk of losing a grant or something that's being able to get them through school. Whereas for me, I was on the other end of it where the lower end of grades, it was kind of easier to tell when I was messing up, because if it's a D, or a lower GPA, then, yeah, that's something to try to catch, early on in class. And again, it's just a lot of communication. we can't always help others. I mean, that's a hard lesson that I've learned through my sister and even working with other people that have spinal cord injuries. But the best thing to do is making sure that we're available for others. I utilize social media a lot and I post a lot of pictures and videos and stuff like that. And it's not about me. It's because when I was hurt early on in my injury, I didn't have anyone to go to. I didn't know who to go to. And again, I was having trouble asking for help. So the first thing that I did was I went to social media and I started looking for people that were having the same issues or the same problems. And that was how I was trying to identify a community. Um, if you see a good student that's maybe starting to associate with others, or if you see a bad student that's associating with a good group, sometimes they're searching for help and it's not going to be vocalized and it's not going to be communicated, but you can notice changes in people doing stuff. Um, and the best you can do is just make yourself available. Hey, if anybody ever needs anything today, I'm available at these times. Hey, Tuesday again, if anybody needs anything, I'm available at these times. I mean, they might not show up, people might not come through your door, and you might feel like a broken record repeating the same thing over and over again. But by at least giving someone the opportunity to come to you for help, or at least having that door open where you know they've heard it and they can come to you for help, or they can come to you for extra credit or grades or even personal problems just to get through the semester, a lot of times is all someone needs. Even if they don't really come to you for help, like if it's getting extra help in class and they just come and communicate to you that something's going on, knowing that someone's there, knowing that you understand, is it means the world. Um, when I had lost my sister, I was also working on my master's degree, and I did not think I was going to be able to finish my master's. It wasn't because I was a student messing up. I just could not focus. I had a lot on my plate, and there were a lot of things going on. And I talked to my professor about it, and they granted me an extra week just to get stuff done, which was very warranted. Like there was no way I was going to balance a full-time job, two kids, and then trying to help family through something like that going on. And that little bit of leeway was enough, to help me graduate and finish my master's. And so, if I wasn't big enough to like communicate that, I probably still would have been stuck. But as a professor and teacher, like if I hadn't already learned those lessons, if I would have had someone coming to me and telling me like, hey, my door is always open. Hey, come talk to me at these hours. Hey, shoot me an email if anything comes up. Day after day, like I said, it might not mean anything to some students, but you might have some students in their time of need actually reach out to you or take you up on it. And that's the opportunity that they need to get through.
I know one of the things that we're struggling with here, at least what I've seen, and it's unfortunate because I know that you've had to deal with that tragedy, but just mental health with our youth right now, I guess with this generation or time, not necessarily just youth, but mental health is like a really big thing. I don't want to say issue because that's not where I want to go with it, but it's a thing that needs to be addressed. So knowing that you've kind of gone through some of that, like what are some of the telltale signs? What would you tell a person? I mean, I know that's a very large question, but I also know that you've gone through some of it, and we're always just looking for resources to help our students out who are having a little bit of a tough time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a mental health provider, so it's hard to fully say that. And people come from different areas, I think, when they're experiencing hardships. Uh, for me, with my injury, I do peer mentor and I work with a lot of people that have been paralyzed. And I have noticed that there are people that will flat out say like they want to die and they're not going to deal with this and they can't live like this anymore. Um, Whereas with my sister, she didn't say a whole lot. To me, there's almost two different things. There's someone who's truly dealing with depression and is going to continue to fight that their whole life, and they have to be equipped with the tools and the resources available to make it through day to day and week to week. That that's an entirely different issue to me than someone who has lost a family member and is going through grief and is just having some really justified negative thoughts for that time frame. They still need someone to work through problems, but it's probably not going to be a reoccurring event. They're just working through something that's significant right now. Um, but it's really hard to identify. I've seen people actually get happier after they've made the decision that they're not going to go forward anymore because they don't have to stress about it. Say if I have financial issues, I have an F in class, and I have a lot going on, the day that I make the decision that I'm not going to deal with it anymore and I just don't care, things get a lot easier and you don't have that burden. Um, People that are starting to shut down friends, getting quieter, not showing up for class, isolating themselves, those are all pretty big signs as well. I've gone through photos of my sister and dealing with certain things myself. You start lashing out at people that try to help you. Maybe you offer a student help and they get extremely defensive. That's always an easy sign of someone that's feeling guilt or going through something is, when people actually get upset at you for you trying to be kind. And it makes us want to withdraw and not help them when, you get attitude or pushback, but those are usually the people that need it. Uh, but yeah, it's just such a hard thing. I mean, having light, honest, open conversations is probably one of the things that I would always recommend doing first. That's why I still talk about it now. A lot of people don't like talking about depression or death or suicide or hardships, but at least for me, as much as I've gone through, whether it's learning from the experiences of family members or the stuff that I'm going through myself, if I didn't have people there to talk about it with, it would be very hard for me to have a good attitude and go on dealing with stuff the way that I deal with it.
Thought I hit the unmute button, but I didn't. And then just, I know that we started, your presentation with kind of some of the videos of where the injury kind of started off for you, but um, I would like for people to get a chance to see what you're capable of now. So, not that I'm going to ask you to pull up anything or show off anything, but you from those pictures and how you're able to function and get around, and it's vastly different. It's a vastly different thing. So I don't know if there's like a place that, if somebody were interested to go and look at to kind of see your journey, where would you kind of direct them to?
I do have a lot of social media, and again, this goes to honestly helping people. My name is Sherown Campbell for full name, but I literally post everywhere and everything because the way that I handle things, and I'm not sure if this would be helpful for you, I don't like a lot of social media, which is really weird that I share so much of it. I don't like Snapchat, but I know there's a younger generation where that's their number one means of communication. So I post stuff everywhere. I try to meet people where they're at because there's kids that are injured. One of the people that I really connected to the most was a 9-year-old girl who had been paralyzed and had reached out after an overpass collapsed on her family's car. And it's Snapchat, and other people, it's Instagram or Facebook. I just try to make sure if anyone's going through something, if they have to go somewhere and they're searching for recovery or spinal cord injury or quadriplegic or anything, that they at least can find someone there that's going through it or someone with experience with it. And so yeah, if you go to any social media avenue, I should have something there, and if not, then please let me know so I can spam somewhere else.
I feel like your name is just unique enough that if they type in Sherown Campbell, they'll find you.
Yeah, and thankfully now I've had enough experience. I've participated in a few medical studies as well, so now I'm getting the opportunity to actually talk about recovery, and it's been a crash course in spinal cord injuries and neuro rehab. So I get to work with like the Department of Defense on grants and combining my athletic background with medical research and tech devices. So I mean, it's not just the experience of it, but I've actually have learned enough over the years now where I can contribute to helping people kind of recover from this injury. So it's it's a full circle type thing, and it's really cool to be a part of and see just how much it's changed. And I get a lot of feedback from others, whether it's peer mentoring in person at the hospital or getting messages online. So even if it's just a few people, it's been worth it. There's a lot of stories, a lot of names, and a lot of pictures and faces that stick through my head and kind of keep me motivated every day now.
Mm. I'm kind of taking over questions here. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I have one more, but before I ask the last one, anybody else want to jump in with anything else?
I just think he's a great role model and an amazing person. And I think he's come a long way. I really admire you. I think you're helping a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned some things today. As far as when some of my students, the way they act sometimes. So I think that might help me in the classroom, maybe recognize some of those things, that how they act, if they need help. I try to be there for my students, and I tell them, I'll talk to you about anything you want, or if I can help you with anything, if there's something's bothering you. But I think you are amazing, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. It means a lot. I wish my kids could hear it because they kind of just think I'm slow
Oh,
and old and I have terrible dad
no
jokes.
way, no way. They probably feel the same way. They just don't say it.
No, they race me. They think I have terrible jokes.
That's the way
But
kids
it,
are.
yeah, it's definitely so different with kids and young ones around, and um it is kind of like that. Like you do see a lot of the attitude and behavioral changes, and it's tough because when people need you the most, they sometimes push you the most.
Right,
They sometimes get very angered. And I mean, I've done it myself, so I try not to.
right,
I can't blame others at all. Like when I'm having the hardest time is usually when, I'm at my ugliest or snapping at people or getting upset, and it has nothing to do with them at all whatsoever. It's type of day I've had, the type of pain that I'm feeling, whatever other else's stuff is going on in the world. And, we're taking it out on the one person that's reaching out to us trying to help. So, I mean, I would definitely say, don't hesitate offering a hand. And when it gets slapped away, the other thing is offer it again. I mean, it sucks and
right,
it takes a lot to do that, but those are usually the people that are needing the most help, are the ones with the worst attitudes and
right.
the worst behavior at the moment.
Well, I appreciate your story. I think we all do. Um, I just admire the heck out of you.
Like I said, it's been a lot of hard lessons. I mean, it's been a shorter call, and I told Catrice and I kind of warned her I'm not a public speaker. I've talked with some medical device things, but it's usually, sharing my experience training through spinal cord injury, which is very easy to talk about because it's my day-to-day life. But as far as helping people with stuff beyond that, or any type of motivation or other things like that, like I'm not the best of it because I don't feel like I'm doing anything different other than navigating the challenges that come up. And so if anything is taken from today, it's just that, it sucks to say, no matter how bad something is, it's probably something someone else is going through. Like hardships are normal in everyone's life. And, it's the response to those things and knowing that we can work through them that really makes the difference, and not shutting down when it happens.
Well, I would have had a final question, but you kind of just closed it up there for me. We are all proud of you. I don't know if, it's weird for me because it's almost like I don't feel like I need to say that to you. I don't know if you receive that well. But we are proud. I'm extremely proud of you. Even in the short time, like I said, that we got to spend that time together, I just know that you're capable of whatever. Um, so thank you. Even though you feel like you're not a public speaker, excuse me, you're definitely super inspirational. Just your thought process, the fact that you want to be in the driver's seat, the fact that you want to do better. I think that's good for people to see. And one thing that you said, and I wrote down because I'm going to write it in a lot of different places, but people are limited to their own experiences and beliefs, and I believe that. And so when they see somebody doing something extraordinary, it's like, hey, wait a minute, like maybe impossible things are possible. So thanks for being amazing. Thanks for just being you. And thanks for hanging out with us today. I know you've got a lot of stuff on your schedule. And you ironed out this time for us. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me. I wish I could chat and hang out more, but it's one of the days where I have massage and acupuncture and medical stuff lined up, and I'm not the quickest out the door. So.
Cool. All right, Sherown. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well,
Thank
good
you,
seeing you all.
Sherown.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year. Hopefully you guys have a great year.
Happy New
You
Year.
too.
All right, bye.